Welcome to Give God 90, Radio on Demand, as I like to call it. My name is Jerry Mitchell, your host for Give God 90. Thank you so much for joining me for just a little while today as we look at God's not going to change, so you're going to have to. Okay? That's the short version of it. If you have not yet downloaded the Give God 90 app, as so many people have now, please think about doing it. It's absolutely free. Gives you the opportunity to go back and search through all of our archives. Gives you the opportunity to download what you want, take it with you, play it later, however you want to do it. Gives you a lot of flexibility in doing that. Also, I need to remind folks, go to givegod90.com, givegod90.com, and check us out there. We're adding things, not every day, sometimes not every week, but we are adding things, but the foundation's still there. The way a lot of people have been helped, so far, is they've gone there, they've looked at the program. It's absolutely free. You don't have to buy a thing. And I know some people say, well, you get what you pay for. Well, you know what? If you want to pay for it, you go right ahead, because there's a donate button down there too. That's all right. But there's several ways to support what we do. There's several ways to do things with us. But we're putting this out there absolutely free to you for one reason, and that is my agenda. And my agenda, plain and simply, is to convince you to live the way that your Creator designed you to live. Right up front with it, not hiding anything. That's our agenda here, is to convince you to live the way your Creator designed you to live. And everything we can do to help you do that, not only spiritually, but physically and emotionally, we're going to try and do that and give you the tools you need to turn your life around, improve your life, improve the lives of the people around you. So that being said, let's start into what I want to talk about today, and that is, excuse me, God's not going to change. Okay, so if God's not going to change, and I'm not doing things the way God needs me to do them, who's the one that has to change here? It has to be me, right? So if God's not going to change, we have to change to conform to what He wants for us. Okay, now I've just said in about 30 seconds what I need to explain in about 20 minutes, okay? I know that's kind of odd, but it boils down to this. God's not going to change. If you're in opposition, if you listened last week, if you're in opposition to your Creator, it's not a good place to be. He's not going to change. You have to be the one to conform to His instructions. So that's going to be the premise that we start from. All right? Just saying. If you don't like that, now's a good time to say, oh, this isn't for me. All right? Not many people are up front with that, but here's your opportunity, because if you stick with it, guess what you're going to find out? You're going to want to change. Okay? And I'm up front with that today. I'm not hiding anything. It's all out here in the open. So stick with me. All right, here we go. A lot of people that I have spoken with in the last several months say, well, of course God changes. Look at what He did with Moses when, Mount Sinai, they got the golden calf going on. He looks at Moses, he says, stand back, Moses, I'm going to kill them all. And Moses begs and says, no, you can't start over with me. I'm too old. You've got to keep doing what we're doing. And God says, okay, Moses, for you, we'll do it. And they say, well, of course God changed. Right there is a good example of God changing. No, He didn't. The plan all along was to work with, let me say this again, the plan all along was to work with the people that He had chosen, the sons of Abraham. The promise that He had made to Abraham still stands, even though He knew there was going to be some issues, right? What that whole thing was all about was two things. It was the people understanding that they were going to continually mess up. Nobody's perfect. They had to get it wrong. The other thing it was all about was Moses. God needed Moses to say the words. Now, if you're not familiar with that expression, there is a psychological way when somebody is in a position and it's stressful, okay? If you actually speak the words, I'm going to win, then you have begun to convince yourself you have an opportunity, you have a chance. There might be something you can do to defeat whatever is in conflict with you. But you have to speak the words. And that's what God needed Moses to do. He needed Moses to speak the words. He needed Moses to be committed to being a leader and a child of Abraham. He needed Moses to be so committed that he was willing to say, nope, you just count me with them. I'm no better than they are. He needed Moses to say that. Moses needed to hear himself say it, and I'm going to do something dangerous. I'm going to assume that there are people listening to this who need to hear themselves say something. And hopefully what you're going to be saying is, yep, I need to change. I need to have my life conform more to what my Creator designed me to do. That's what I'm hoping the outcome will be from this. And again, I'm putting everything out here up front. And then we're going to come back and explain to you why that has to happen. Because just as the people, they wanted something, they needed something, they were begging Aaron, we don't know what's going on, right? So Aaron comes up, he does everything he can to get out of it. He finally backs himself into a corner he can't get out of. So he designs this golden calf, puts it on the altar and says, now tomorrow, here's your God. Tomorrow we're going to have a celebration for our Creator. That's kind of odd thing to say when you've got an idol sitting here on an altar, right? But here it is. Everything's right there. Now the people realize they messed up. They understand they messed up. They understand that they are now in opposition to the instructions given to them just a few days ago. Right? So here we go. God gets mad. Moses, I'm going to do this. Moses is like, no. He needed to say the words. He needed to say, count me with them. He needed to say, there's got to be another way. He needed to say all of the things he said so that he would be completely committed to the next 40 years. Okay? Now that has taken place, Moses is now established. He was established before in the eyes of the people. He was established before in the eyes of his Creator. Now, Moses has committed himself. He has committed himself to getting this group of people from point A to point B. Wherever point B might be, he was committed to getting them there. So now he has established this. God did not change. God did not change. The sons of Abraham, they had to change. Moses had to change. Moses needed the opportunity to see a win. He needed the opportunity to look at what defeat might look like and understand it and say, no, I choose to win. So, and sometimes the way you do that is to say, if you're going to kill everybody else, God, you got to kill me too, because I'm no better than they are. Sometimes that's what we need to say in order to understand what defeat looks like, so that we have a picture we have a picture of the win. We know, we know, the agony of defeat, and we know the thrill of victory, right? So we need to see both sides of it. Moses recognized the agony of defeat, but he also understood that victory was getting to point B. The win was at point B. The good spot was point B. Not point A. That's where you start. You got to go to point B. So when God says to you or to me, what you're doing, I don't approve of. Who has to change? Well, obviously it's not the Almighty, so it has to be us. If he looks at me and he says, you know what? I don't think you should be wearing black socks anymore. Not that he's going to do that. He doesn't care what color socks I wear, right? Because let's face it, most of the summer and spring and a lot of the fall months, I don't wear socks at all. All right, it's just who I am. I hate the things. Just saying. But what he said, if he says to me, you can't wear black socks, I have to be the one to change. He doesn't have to change. He's God. I have to be the one to change. If he says to you, you're doing something I did not design you to do, you need to be the one to change. You need to be the one to say, okay, I need to get to point B. I've seen my starting point. I know my starting point isn't a good place for me. I don't know exactly where point B might be yet, but I know it's not here. Are you willing? Now here's the big question. Are you willing to leave point A? I'll go back to the mixed multitude coming out of Egypt. They were willing to leave Egypt, but then they kept looking back, going, you know what? It wasn't such a bad place after all. It looks a lot better. It looked greener there than it looks here. It looked like there was more food there than it looks like here. It looked like there was, we got beat a little bit. We had to work really, really hard, but it kind of looks better there than it looks here. Are you willing to leave point A, and before you get to point B, are you willing to continue the journey? Are you willing to continue the journey? Let's think for a minute. If you attend a modern Christian church, or maybe a modern Jewish synagogue for that matter, is the doctrine of that place in opposition to the Bible? And I know that sounds funny, me saying that the doctrine of a synagogue may be in opposition to the Bible, but there are some I know that are. And when we think about this, now stick with me for a minute, because here's where some folks are going to get a little upset. He started to step on where I go to church. Ooh, I don't like that. That's okay, because I need you to think about this. I was there. and many of you, I have told you the history of that. Many of you know I was in the Methodist Church for a long time. I grew up in the Methodist Church. And I reached a point where I looked at the doctrine of the church, not the people, okay, but what the overall doctrine of the United Methodist Church was saying and the action of the leadership, and I said, I can't be part of that. And I fought it for a while, and I realized that there were too many people who are comfortable, and I don't want to say they're comfortable with the doctrine, but they were comfortable with being surrounded by like-minded people, okay? That they weren't willing to work and change the doctrine. They weren't willing to say, no. We're sticking with Scripture. They were willing to allow themselves to be used in a way. So what we had with that is I looked at that situation, I fought it for a while, and I said, okay, I'm at point A. God's not going to change. I need to go to point B. So when I left the church I was at, a lot of people got upset. A lot of people got upset. And they said, why are you doing this? And I said, look, it's not you, it's not the people. And it's not the people. It's the doctrine of the organization. Can't be part of it. And that was long before what caused a division of the United Methodist Church that's coming in this year, I believe. I actually believe that they will split this year. So what we have now is I was willing to walk away from point A, not knowing exactly where point B was going to be. I hope that made sense. There were some people who looked at me and said, you know, I'm willing to leave point A. I'm willing to leave point A. I had to decide, and this was a tough decision for me. I had to decide, am I willing to lead? Am I willing to put what I know the Bible says in my life as a strict enough doctrine that I could lead people biblically? My answer had to be yes, because, you know, God's not going to change. I had to be the one to change. I never in my entire lifetime expected to be speaking to people about changing your life to conform to what Scripture says. It never occurred to me until a few years ago when I didn't, I was put in a position of it's either speak or be held accountable later. I had to say the words. I had to say the words. I had to be willing to say, yes, I can lead. I can do this. I am willing to put myself on the line to say to other people, you should live the way your Creator designed you to live. I had to do that because God didn't change. He needed me to change. He needed me to say the words. Just like He needed Moses to, to say the words. He needed me to say the words. What words do you need to say? What do you need to do? That might be, sometimes it's easier to ask the question than it is to find the answer, right? So, how do you find the answer? What do you need to do? What are you looking for? Are you looking to go to point B? And you think you know where point B is? I'll be honest with you, I didn't know where point B was. All I knew was I needed to leave point A. I'm still not quite sure I'm at point B. I'm still thinking I'm on this journey. I'm not eating manna, but we're in the desert because it looked a lot greener back yonder. Okay? Maybe you're there. Maybe you're there. Maybe you think you're just a few steps away from point B. You're getting ready to cross into your promised land, whatever that might be, and you're saying, "Oh, I'm glad I made it." Well, I'm glad you made it too. But the thing is, what did it take to get you there? What words did you have to say? What did you have to do? There are friends of mine I know that are going through some issues right now, both health-wise and family-wise, and they understand. They understand. They have left point A. They're in the desert, and they're kind of going, well, I don't want to go back because it wasn't all that pretty back there, but I don't know exactly what I need to do to get to point B either. So maybe you're there. Maybe you're searching for what words you need to say. Maybe you have recognized what defeat looks like, but you're not quite certain what your victory looks like. Let me suggest this. It's a lot easier to identify your victory if you're living the way your Creator designed you to live. If you're simply going through the motions, and I know a lot of people do this. They simply go through the motions. They claim they are obedient, and most of them are, but they're simply going through the motions. It's no different than if they were in a church and going through the doctrines and the motions of their church. So they've come out, now they're simply going through the motions of this thing called God's instructions. But they're not truly living the way they're designed to live. They want to, they just don't know how sometimes. So what we do, when we see these things, what they see in these things is they want to get to point B, and they want to get to point B right now. They want to have it. They've got to have it. They pull and they do everything they can to get there. But they're not willing to spend that time in the desert. They're not willing to spend that time of reflection looking and seeing what defeat looks like. They're not willing to speak the words that describe their victory. They're not willing to be counted in defeat of themselves because they don't want to see that. All they want to see is the victory. They want to see the things. They want to see, what they want to see the glory. They don't want to see the agony. And I get it. Nobody wants to see defeat. But just like Moses had to see the agony of defeat. He had to speak the words that were going to lead him to the win. He had to say the things that his Creator needed him to say, not to convince anybody else, not to convince God, not to convince the people, but Moses needed to speak it to convince Moses. I needed to speak it. Now, God didn't need to know what I was saying. He already knew what I needed to say. My wife and my family sure didn't need to hear what I was saying. They thought I was crazy already. But they knew I needed to do something. They knew that what I was doing wasn't working. They knew I had to speak the words. They just didn't know what words I needed to speak. And trust me, they were surprised. They were probably, I doubt they were as surprised as I was when I finally had to speak the words. Yes, I'm willing to lead. Yes, I'm willing to say, this is what your Creator designed you to do. Are you ready? Are you ready to leave point A? Maybe you've left point A. Are you ready to look and see what defeat looks like? More importantly, are you willing to speak the words that will lead to point B, your win and your victory? Are you willing to change? Sometimes you don't have to turn completely around. Sometimes you just have to be willing to change. Are you willing to change your lifestyle to match the lifestyle that you're designed to live? Are you willing to stop doing the things that continually lead to defeat? Are you willing to stop doing the things that keep pointing back to where you were? Are you willing to stop turning around and going to where you were? Are you willing to speak the words that will lead to victory? Are you willing to speak the words that will lead to your win. Because sometimes, the words that I had to speak might not be the words you need to speak. The things that I have to do, you might be doing something completely, not opposite, okay, but differently. The path is narrow, but the path is parallel, right, to get to where you want to go. It's not that you're going in a different direction. Go in the same direction, but you're just, maybe not in the same track, maybe, if that makes sense. Because some of the things that I have to do to get to where I'm thinking I'm going, you might be going the same direction, but maybe you're in if you picture a train track, maybe you're in the car ahead of me, or 2 or 3 cars ahead of me. Maybe you're in the car in back of me. Maybe you're in the seat behind me or ahead of me. I don't know. But if that's a good analogy for you, what do you need to do to speak the words? What do you need to do to get to point B? Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that this has been an inspiration, because you've got to speak the words. You've got to speak the words. God's not going to change, but He needs you to change. He needed me to change. I'm still changing. I'm working on it every day. You don't get there overnight. It's not a snap of your fingers magical thing. It's something you got to work on. It's something you continually do. It's not just like going to the store and buying a present for somebody. You're done once. This is something, it's kind of like, not even brushing your teeth, because you're supposed to do that twice a day, right? It's not even like eating. You're supposed to do that 3 times a day. It's like breathing. It's like breathing. You have to do it continually. It needs to be on your mind, and it needs to become something that you do that is as natural as breathing. That's when, once you've spoken the words, once you understand that you're going to leave point A and you're going to go to point B, whatever your point B is, how you get there, going through the process, learning to do things His way, not our way. It's not a one and done thing. You got to work on it all the time. Or at least I do. I don't think I'm alone in that boat. I hope this has been an inspiration for you. I pray that you take what I've just said to heart and you speak the words that will lead you to a win. Till next week, I pray many, many blessings for all of you.